you're looking at modern legislature in any state, all of the stuff is online. In Washington, you can find that at Ledge, and that follows the legislature's every move. And you can look at the current language of any bill that's going through the system. You can see the bills from an overview, and you can even see the proposed amendments on it. So the one thing that I've noticed in Washington State is that often people are reading the wrong version of law, like they're reading a couple iterations ago. And often when a bill's traveling through a legislature, especially in Washington, there's striking amendments. And what a striking amendment is in a piece of legislation is taking everything except for the bill sponsors and the title and replacing all the other words. So a striking amendment basically turns it into a different bill. And you could be reading one bill and say, hey, I have a problem with that. And there's a completely different bill going on. So, and it'll also, like in the state of Washington, with any bill, it will have, if you go to the bill, the homepage, you can read through when it was introduced, what the first reading was, what committees it needs to go through, what committees it has passed, and all the way up into session law. And that's, if you look at the documents, and it'll have all the available documents from the bill. Once a bill is passed, that passed bill is always called session law. If you're reading anything else, you're not reading what actually passed. So first things first is make sure that you're reading the right bill. And as I say, if you're serious about following legislation, here's the bad news, Shango, is you have to sit down and read it. And that is tough. Myself, what I do is I take myself out to dinner, just me and the bill, and a highlighter and a pen, and I just sit there and have dinner and read the thing. All devices turned off, and go through it. Bill language is like anything else. It's a little bit learning a foreign language, but I think the best way to begin to have those skills is to just do it and to read it. You'll kind of, after you've read a few of these documents, you kind of understand the way they're organized, and you'll say, oh, okay, yeah, I understand this section is the intent section, and, this section has to do with this section has to do with when sections are enacted, and you'll begin to get it. But I mean, if you're really going to follow the law, if you're going to follow a legislative cycle, follow the law through the legislative cycle, you got to put the work in. And unfortunately, you'll read one iteration of the bill, you'll have your comments, and then they'll put in a striking amendment. Yep, you got to read that one too. And when a striking amendment is proposed, often what you have to do is take that striking amendment and compare it to the last version of the bill to see what things have changed. And sometimes you have to go through line by line, because the iterations of the bill will only show you by underlining and striking what pieces were added, what pieces were taken away from existing law, not from the last iteration of the bill. So often it's a matter of mechanically going through line by line and saying to yourself, what has changed here?
It sounds like this would be a really good opportunity to use a mentor, in that yes, your idea to make sure that you know where the bills are online, and to make sure that you're reading the most recent bill are good. But it sounds like every state is going to have its own idiosyncrasies, and so finding a mentor who can say, okay, these are the 5 things you need to know. This is where the bills are kept. This is how to read it in our state, to kind of get your toes wet, so that from that point you can take yourself to dinner and know what you're reading and know you're reading the right thing.
Yeah, and that's if you can find someone who's willing to do that. Yeah, that's great, because I mean, they don't teach you this stuff in school. I mean, even if you are going through and getting a poli-sci degree, they don't teach you these skills. These are skills that are learned on how to follow legislation like this. But yeah, absolutely, if you can get a mentor without an agenda to sit and kind of take you through how bills in your particular locality or state or whatever you're concerned with, what that process is, that would be a wonderful thing.
I think that's a good point, too, that you need to kind of suck it up and know you're going to have to read this bill and read the bill over and over again, very likely during the legislative cycle, because, there are certainly rewards to it, because when you read the bill, you are going to know that better than anybody that you talk to, because almost nobody else has read the bill. And so you'll have a level of familiarity with it that others won't, which will not only have other people that you're trying to activate respect you more, probably, but also when you speak to the legislators, they're going to know that you're not contacting them just based on rumor, but that you've actually done your homework.
Yeah, and there's so much rumor out there. Like, if you're going to follow a bill, but don't just take other people's word for it, because those people come with agendas, and they will tell you things about a bill that's more rumor than truth. And then if you're just going around saying, well, this bill ends hashish in Washington State, it's like, no, it doesn't. Read, here's the sections that's in. It's more nuanced than that. If you're gonna, be all opinionated about the bill, at least know what you're talking about. You should know these bills are broken up into sections. And if you're concerned with concentrates, there'll be a section, maybe two, that deals with that. I mean, you could at least find those sections and follow those sections. But if you're going to have an opinion, please make sure that you yourself are looking at it and not taking anyone else's word, because, the upshot of that is with the rumor, it gets a lot of those people. Some agency will go out and say, hey, we need to storm our legislature because they are proposing this, and it's not true. And then a bunch of people show up down at the legislature and start lobbying their legislators to change something that's not there. It kind of makes us all look like we're high.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, thanks, John. We're going to have to take a short break right here. We'll be right back. You are listening to the Ganjapreneur.com podcast.
After a short message from the sponsors who made this show possible, Ganjapreneur will return.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled Kaercher. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. Kaercher spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's Kaercher Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
From high atop Mount Soledad in San Diego, California, 100 feet above sea level. Good morning. It's good news with cannabis nurse Heather.
This plant is amazing. Positive change is happening. We did it. No matter who you are, you can make a positive impact on the world.
I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
And that quote helped to give you strength.
Nurse Heather is only on CannabisRadio.com.
Good morning, cannabis nurse Heather.
We're back to help Ganjapreneurs grow. You're listening to Ganjapreneur, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Ganjapreneur.com podcast. I am your host, Shango Los, and our guest this week is longtime cannabis activist, consultant, and entrepreneur John Davis. So, John, before the break, we were talking about, if you really want to get into following cannabis legislation at the state level, you really need to get in with both feet. And getting involved with the creation of legislation can be really frustrating and fulfilling at the same time. There's so many deals that are made in the shadows and so much money in the game. Do you think that there's individual people can still play a role in cannabis legislation at the state level?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you can't. Yes, if you're on your own and not willing to put in the work, yes, you are unable to affect anything. However, if you're actually willing to put in the work, and you by yourself can be effective by going in and making those relationships with legislators and getting to know them. One of the best things that you can do as a private citizen is show up to the fundraisers, right? You don't even have to give money every time you go to a fundraiser. Nobody checks. But it's always, money is the way that some of the engine runs. So if you're able to give some, that always helps. You give some money and you can get a legislator on the phone. But by forging these relationships, you by yourself can be influential by being able to influence a lawmaker. And then that lawmaker can be influential in the actual floor, the stuff that goes down on the floor. What's a better idea is to find other people with like minds. And that's what you can do as just, Joe everybody, is find other people that have like minds, get in it. It actually makes it better because, when you're going through, you're all having to read the law, you can cry on each other's shoulders about how much it sucks. But as you're more people, you have a larger voice. You can get to more legislators. You can even give yourself a name, right? And as long as your brand is good and they consider you people that know what you're talking about, then yes, you can be effective. It's not just about the money, but I mean, it can be a lot about the money. But it's also, given the money, the legislators aren't going to do something that's just evil because of money. They have to get reelected. So they are definitely influenced by money, but they're also influenced by putting together something that is not going to be horrific to the voting public.
It sounds from what you said before the first break that they would really value, the legislators would appreciate being come to with actual ideas from somebody who's actually done their homework. And since so many cannabis activists are, we've got more history than a lot of the legislators, that having read the bills and actually having some solutions in mind instead of just coming to complain would also be a really great way to create influence. So you might not come with money, but if you come with ideas, they have their own value, and the elected officials were probably thrilled to hear them because maybe that's the solution they've been looking for themselves.
They are. And look, if you actually know what the heck you are talking about, you are a stakeholder, and you can give them the stakeholder's perspective. And if you really know what you're talking about, they want that. But, I mean, you do have to come with solutions. But those solutions, people think that they can come and say, hey, look, I think that law should include this. It's no, to be effective, you say, okay, in third line, page 46, I need should to be may. That is what actually changes legislators' minds, because that's something that they could do. I mean, you're not asking them, hey, can you go understand all of this subject and then change it based on these ideals that I have? I mean, they're not going to do it. But when you come in and say, look, I have read the proposed bill, I'm good with a lot of it. Section 3, I need this paragraph to be stricken. Specific things, they're really looking for it, and if you actually have credibility of knowing what you're doing, they can also say, hey, look, we've met with stakeholders and the stakeholders wanted this.
That sounds like it would make a lot of sense to give them truly actionable information that they can do something about, instead of having it be kind of amorphous and then they have to take the next step to figure out, how to actually make that happen. So we were talking about meeting with the state representatives in order to make this happen. For folks who have never done that before, how exactly do you do it? Is it as easy as just picking up the phone and calling them and asking for their time?
Oh, no. They view that as lazy. And sometimes they'll give you their time. But look, if you're interested in, let's take Washington State, for example. Go down to Olympia. Drive down to Olympia. Parking, actually, the rates are not too bad. And go into the legislative session early on. This is after you've already attended a bunch of fundraisers, right? But now you're in session. Go to the offices of especially people that are in the committees that matter to your bill. And do you meet with the representative? No. You meet with the legislative aides. The legislative people don't understand how important legislative aides are. Most of the stuff that's actually written comes from the legislative aides, not the legislator. Now, knowing the legislator is handy because they can